So therefore, this is the hepatorenal pouch, anterior and posterior wall. Now, superior wall of hepatorenal pouch. Superiorly, this is the inferior layer of coronary ligament. So superiorly, it is closed by inferior layer of coronary ligament, or the superior boundary of the hepatorenal pouch, or right subhepatic space, or the right posterior intraperitoneal recess will be by the inferior layer of coronary ligament. So superiorly by inferior layer of coronary ligament, anteriorly by the inferior surface of the right lobe of the liver, posteriorly by the right colic flexure, the right suprarenal gland and the right kidney. Three walls are clear. Now this hepatorenal pouch, or the right subhepatic space, or the right intraperitoneal recess will be open on three sides: left, right and inferior. Left, right and inferior. How it is open, please try and understand. If I draw an arrow from this space, let us assume this is the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison. So this is the right subhepatic space. Now on the left side, it will communicate with omental bursa through a narrow foramen, and this foramen is known as epiploid foramen or foramen of Winslow. So left side, our hepatorenal pouch or the right subhepatic space will communicate with the omental bursa, or that omental bursa is the cavity of lesser sac, or it is also known as the left subhepatic space through epiploid foramen. So left side, this hepatorenal pouch will communicate with the cavity of lesser sac through epiploid foramen. What about right side? Now right side, it will communicate round the right triangular ligament, round the free margin of right triangular ligament, round the free margin of right triangular ligament with the right anterior intraperitoneal recess, that is the right suprahepatic recess. So on the right side, it will communicate with the right suprahepatic recess or the right intraperitoneal recess across the free margin of the right triangular ligament. So we have seen left communication, right communication, inferior. Now inferiorly, it will communicate through the right paracolic gutter. And through the right paracolic gutter, it will communicate straight into the pelvic cavity. And here if I mention the right paracolic gutter and then straight away into the pelvic cavity. So inferiorly it will communicate with pelvic cavity through right paracolic gutter, which I am going to explain it to you. What is right paracolic gutter? It is the space, longitudinal space on the right side, on either side of ascending colon. So the space which is present lateral and medial to ascending colon, longitudinal space, is called right paracolic gutter. Through that space, this pouch will communicate with the pelvic cavity, and this assumes a lot of clinical significance here. So here we have finished our hepatorenal pouch. This clinical significance, which I will explain it to you in the last segment, applied anatomy. So therefore we finish our second intraperitoneal space, the right posterior intraperitoneal space or the right subhepatic space or the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison. Superior wall, anterior wall, posterior wall, and three communications on the left side, on the right side and inferiorly. Now let us consider, please come on this side. Now let us consider the third subphrenic space. And the third subphrenic space will be, if I just write it on this side, the right side extraperitoneal space, the right extraperitoneal space. Remember, out of the 6 subphrenic spaces, 3 on the right and 3 on the left, there are 2 extraperitoneal spaces which I had mentioned, one on the right, one on the left. So this is the right side extraperitoneal space. We have finished the previous two spaces, the right suprahepatic space and the right subhepatic space. Now the third one will be right extraperitoneal space. This right extraperitoneal space, very simple. It is basically very simple. Once again, very sorry. Please come on this side. Now, where my hand is there, this is our bare area of liver. This is the bare area of the liver. And the space which is present here, posterior to the bare area. This space is itself the right extraperitoneal space. What are the boundaries of right extraperitoneal space? The boundaries will be superior layer of coronary ligament, inferior layer of coronary ligament, right side, right triangular ligament with its reflection, peritoneal reflection to diaphragm, superior layer of coronary ligament with its reflection to the peritoneum, and on the left side, presence of inferior vena cava. So altogether, this is an enclosed space, and this forms the right extraperitoneal space. The right side extraperitoneal space, which is the bare area of the liver. So here we finish the 3 subphrenic spaces on the right side. Now on the left side, we come to the left side. Please come on this side once again. On the left side, this is falciform ligament. The space which is present left to the falciform ligament, we consider that space as the left anterior intraperitoneal recess. The left anterior intraperitoneal recess. And therefore, here we will write down, if I write down space number 4, the left anterior intraperitoneal recess. Just like the right anterior intraperitoneal recess, left anterior intraperitoneal recess. The other name of the left anterior intraperitoneal recess will be left suprahepatic recess. Left suprahepatic recess. What are the boundaries of this? Very simple. Try and understand. The boundaries of this will be anteriorly, anterior abdominal wall. Anteriorly, anterior abdominal wall. Posteriorly, very important points. Posteriorly, the following structures. First of all, where my hand is there. Anterior surface of left lobe of liver, spleen, and upper part of anterior surface of stomach. So 3 organs are there. Number 1, anterior surface of left lobe of the liver. Number 2, spleen. Number 3, the anterior surface of upper part of stomach. And now comes the most important part. Posteriorly, there will be presence of left triangular ligament. Here I will draw this as the left triangular ligament. This is the left triangular ligament. So this becomes the posterior wall of the left suprahepatic space, left triangular ligament, along with the anterior surface of left lobe of liver, along with the spleen, along with the anterior surface of the upper part of the stomach. These are the posterior boundaries of the left suprahepatic space, or the left intraperitoneal recess, anterior intraperitoneal recess, left side. Superior boundary is by the diaphragm. Superior boundary will be by the diaphragm. So this diaphragm will form the superior boundary of the left suprahepatic recess. Anterior abdominal wall. Posterior, all these structures which we have explained, the left triangular ligament, the anterior surface of left lobe of liver, the spleen, and the upper part of the stomach. Superiorly by the diaphragm, and inferiorly this left suprahepatic recess, or the left anterior intraperitoneal recess. Inferiorly it will communicate with all the regions of supracolic compartment. Inferiorly it will communicate with all the supracolic regions, supracolic compartments, inferiorly. So here we finish the 4th subphrenic recess. Now we consider the 5th subphrenic recess. Now this 5th subphrenic recess is very interesting. First, the terminology. What is the name of that 5th one? The 5th one is known as the left subhepatic recess. Other name, the other synonym will be the left posterior intraperitoneal recess. The left posterior intraperitoneal recess. And the third, it is nothing else but it is known as lesser sac. So it is the cavity of lesser sac, which is also known as omental bursa. These are the synonyms. So Recess number 5 of the subphrenic spaces, it is known as the left posterior intraperitoneal recess or the left subhepatic recess or the lesser sec or omental bursa. So our lesser sec or omental bursa, which we have studied extensively, we have discussed it. That is nothing but the left subhepatic recess, or it is also known as the left posterior intraperitoneal recess. That is itself lesser sec or omental bursa. Please note down. Now remember, whenever we are writing these terminologies on the right and left, the subphrenic spaces, these terminologies can also be asked in a lot of MCQs or 1 mark question answer. The other name of this recess is in this way. So the other name of the left subhepatic space is lesser sec or omental bursa, or the other name of the left posterior intraperitoneal recess is the omental bursa or lesser sec. So please try and remember these terminologies. These terminologies are very important in fetching 1 mark questions, 1 mark answers. Now after fifth, the last one, sixth one. If I write the sixth one, now the sixth one will be the left extraperitoneal space. Remember extraperitoneal spaces, one on the right side, one on the left side. So the left here, left extraperitoneal space, the last of the subphrenic spaces or the last of the supracolic spaces. Remember, subphrenic spaces are supracolic spaces. Left extraperitoneal space, it is a normal space which is present between anteriorly the posterior surface of left lobe of liver, anteriorly the posterior surface of left lobe of liver, posterior to this, where my hand is there, posterior to this, and posteriorly by left suprarenal gland and left kidney. Posteriorly by left suprarenal gland. So here if I draw, posteriorly if I draw here, this is the suprarenal gland and this is the kidney. Kidney and suprarenal gland. I have shown in dotted form posteriorly. So the left extraperitoneal space is just a space which is present between the posterior surface of the left lobe of liver and posteriorly by left suprarenal gland and left kidney. Simple. That is the left extraperitoneal space. Here we have finished the supracolic spaces, the subphrenic spaces, remember. Now infracolic. What is infracolic structure? Infracolic spaces. Infracolic spaces will be, if you understand this diagram, this is the level of transverse colon, the right colic flexure, left colic flexure. The space or the regions of peritoneal cavity or the spaces of the peritoneal cavity which are present below this level, below the level of transverse colon and transverse mesocolon, below that will be known as infracolic spaces. So let us understand the infracolic spaces. In order to understand the infracolic spaces, first we shall draw the diagram of transverse colon with that of the right and left colic flexures. So let us draw the diagram of transverse colon as well as the right and left colic flexures. And here we start with the transverse colon. This is the transverse colon with the left colic flexure. Here this is the right colic flexure and ascending colon. This is the cecum and this is the ascending colon, right colic flexure, the transverse colon and the descending colon with that of the sigmoid colon and rectum. And here what we will, this is the ascending colon, this is the descending colon, this is the transverse colon, of course here sigmoid colon, and then below that here sigmoid colon and rectum, and these structures will be in pelvic cavity. Now we are going to show the root of the mesentery. Root of the mesentery will be, this is the root of the mesentery, and this root of mesentery will be extending from, this landmark is very important, from the left duodenojejunal flexure on the left hand side, left duodenojejunal flexure on the left hand side. So here I am just going to show the section of, coronal section of the duodenojejunal flexure on the left hand side. To the right side ileocecal junction, to the right side here there is this ileocecal junction, right ileocecal junction. So this is where the root of the mesentery is attached. Once again, the root of mesentery is attached from left side duodenal jejunal flexure to the right side ileocecal junction, and here we will mention this as the root of mesentery. This is the root of mesentery. Now, the infracolic compartment that lies below the level of transverse colon and transverse mesocolon, that is the mesentery of the transverse colon, transverse mesocolon. Below that, this much portion is the infracolic compartment. The entire infracolic compartment is divided by the root of mesentery into two compartments. So our infracolic region is divided into two peritoneal regions by root of mesentery. Number one, this peritoneal region over here, this will be known as the right infracolic region or compartment, and over here left infracolic region or compartment. So our infracolic spaces, the infracolic peritoneal spaces are divided by the root of mesentery into the right infracolic compartment and the left infracolic compartment. Now the boundaries. Right infracolic compartment will be bounded by right side ascending colon, left side root of mesentery, and superiorly transverse colon. It is a closed cavity. Now this right infracolic compartment, remember it is a closed cavity. It will not communicate with any other cavities. Boundaries. Right side, left side, superiorly. Left infracolic region compartment, it is not a closed cavity. What are the boundaries first? The boundaries will be left side descending colon, right side root of mesentery, superiorly transverse colon, inferiorly, you can see over here, it will communicate inferiorly with the pelvic cavity. So here it is communicating with the pelvic cavity, the different regions of the pelvic cavity. It will communicate with pelvic cavity, the infracolic compartment. Now, after understanding these compartments, let us understand the right and left paracolic gutters very fast. The ascending colon, descending colon. The paracolic gutters are simply longitudinal channels which are present on either side of ascending and descending colon. On the right side, the right lateral paracolic gutter, the right medial paracolic gutter. Now the right medial, where my hand is there, this right medial, they are simply longitudinal spaces. What are paracolic gutters? They are longitudinal spaces present on either side of ascending colon as well as descending colon. Now on the right side, this medial right paracolic gutter is closed. It is a closed segment. What about the right lateral, where my hand is there? Now this right lateral, if I put an arrow, this is the right lateral paracolic gutter. And this right lateral paracolic gutter here, the right lateral paracolic gutter will communicate superior to inferior. Superiorly, what is present? Superiorly, it will communicate the right subhepatic space. What is the other name of right subhepatic space? It is also known as hepatorenal pouch of Morrison. So it will communicate the right subhepatic space, hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, with that of the right side. Where? What structure of the right side? Right side, it will communicate with the pelvic cavity, and in the pelvic cavity there will be presence of, in females, recto-uterine pouch, and in males recto-vesical pouch. So here it will communicate with recto-uterine pouch in females, recto-uterine pouch in females, and the recto-vesical pouch in case of males. This communication is very important in clinical anatomy. A lot of infections from the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison or the right subhepatic space may spread down into the recto-uterine pouch in females or the recto-vesical pouch in males in pelvic cavity through the right lateral paracolic gutter. Now on the left side, similarly, on medial and lateral there are the left paracolic gutter, the left lateral and the left medial paracolic gutter. So this lateral paracolic gutter as well as this side over here, this will be known as the left medial paracolic gutter. But these left side paracolic gutters are openly communicating superiorly with supracolic spaces and inferiorly with the spaces in the pelvic cavity. This will also serve as an important clinical contribution for the spreading of the diseases between the different regions of the peritoneal cavity. Now we consider the last segment, applied anatomy. In order to understand this applied anatomy, please come on this side here. I will rub here and I will create some space over here to understand the applied anatomy. Now, in the applied anatomy, first of all, let us write down the applied anatomy. The first point, any pus collection, any type of collection, pus collection within any of the subphrenic spaces, it will lead to distension of those spaces. So pus collection in any of the subphrenic spaces will lead to its distension, and therefore it will be known as subphrenic abscess. So this is generalized collection of pus which is present in either of the subphrenic spaces, any of the subphrenic spaces, and it will be known as the subphrenic abscess. It will lead to distension of any of these spaces. So subphrenic abscess is one terminology in applied anatomy. Collection of pus within any of the subphrenic spaces will lead to its distension, which is known as subphrenic abscess. Second point, which is the most important point, the second point. Remember the space which we have discussed, hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, which is also known as the right subhepatic space, or it is also known as right posterior intraperitoneal space, one of the subphrenic spaces. This space is the most dependent space in the supine position. Remember, in the supine position of the body, this is the most dependent space. This sentence is very important. Everywhere it is given in all the books. The hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, or the right subhepatic space, is the most dependent space in the supine position of the body. And therefore, any kind of fluid collection or any type of infection or any type of inflammatory exudate tends to be collected in this space. So the most frequently infected subphrenic space is the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, or subhepatic space, right side subhepatic space, which is the most commonly infected subphrenic space. Because of its position is such that it is the most dependent position in supine position. Now, in the same position, when the patient will be elevated, when the patient will be made to sit up, when the patient is asked to sit up, not in supine position, but from supine position when the patient assumes sitting position, sitting posture, what will happen? The infection will spread from this, the fluid which is collected from this space, the right subhepatic space or hepatorenal pouch of Morrison will spread into the recto-uterine pouch in case of females, or rectovesical pouch in case of males, and both these pouches are present in pelvic cavity. And how does it spread? It will spread through the right paracolic gutter, which I have explained over there. The presence of right paracolic gutter here. From the right subhepatic space, any inflammatory exudate, any infectious material or any kind of fluid will be passing from this into the pelvic cavity, into the right side pelvic cavity, which has the presence of recto-uterine pouch in females and rectovesical pouch in males. And here, this space, please come on this side now once again. Here, this space, the hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, most of it will be containing the exudates from the disease affecting gallbladder or appendix or any other organs. Or it may even contain the exudate from omental bursa, because this pouch and omental bursa are in communication through epiploic foramen. So therefore, what is the moral of the story? That any infection in this pouch, hepatorenal pouch of Morrison, can infect the recto-uterine pouch, or it can affect the rectovesical pouch through the right paracolic gutter. And now we come to the last point, point number 3 of the applied anatomy. Omental bursa. We know this omental bursa. What is this omental bursa? It is also known as lesser sac, or the left subhepatic space. The omental bursa or lesser sac, or the left subhepatic space, which we have discussed so many times. Here in this omental bursa, what is the common reason to get infected? The commonest reason will be posterior perforating peptic ulcer from the stomach. In the stomach, if there is a chronic peptic ulcer case, then that peptic ulcer may perforate through the posterior wall of the stomach. And when it perforates through the posterior wall of the stomach, the inflammatory exudate will be collected in the cavity of lesser sac or omental bursa. So posteriorly perforating peptic ulcer from the stomach through its posterior wall will commonly get collected in the cavity of lesser sac or omental bursa. And in some cases, when this inflammatory exudate is present here because of posteriorly perforating peptic ulcer from posterior wall of the stomach, the epiploic foramen will also be blocked. And we know that the entire lesser sac or omental bursa is enclosed on all the sides except at one place on the right margin through epiploic foramen. That is the only source of communication of this lesser sac with greater sac. And that portion of greater sac is which pouch? Hepatorenal pouch through epiploic foramen. So epiploic foramen is the only source of communication between lesser sac and the greater sac, and therefore in cases of the inflammatory exudate which is accumulated in the lesser sac, sometimes the epiploic foramen is also blocked. In those cases, there may be passage of the drainage tube directly into the omental bursa in order to drain the collected pus, in order to drain the collected inflammatory exudate. Drainage channel or drainage tube has to be passed directly into the cavity of lesser sac. Otherwise, in many cases, what may happen will be the inflammation, the inflammatory exudate, whether it is from the posterior wall of the stomach, if it is collected in lesser sac, it may pass through the epiploic foramen, into the right side subhepatic space, the hepatorenal pouch which is present on the right side, and from there it may pass down into the rectouterine pouch or rectovesical pouch in the pelvic cavity through right paracolic gutter. In some cases it is this way, this channel through which it can directly affect the pelvic cavity. So either way it is present. Sometimes the epiploic foramen is blocked, so the omental bursa is dilated, it is extended, distended. In some cases, this omental bursa, whatever infection is present in the omental bursa, may drain through epiploic foramen into the right side, right subhepatic space, that is hepatorenal pouch. And from there it may drain directly through the right paracolic gutter into the pelvic cavity. So remember one thing, this omental bursa, the cavity of lesser sac, is also in communication through epiploic foramen, through the right side subhepatic space, that is hepatorenal pouch, and through right paracolic gutter into the pelvic cavity, that is the rectouterine pouch or rectovesical pouch. So any kind of infection may pass directly into the pelvic cavity from omental bursa or lesser sac. Here we complete the 3 points of the applied anatomy of the spatial regions of the peritoneal cavity, that is supracolic and infracolic regions. Thank you very much.